We all think it's laziness, but there's one phrase that makes kids listen. It's a total game changer, and you've tried everything. The sticker charts, the reward systems, the timeouts, the consequences. You've tried being firm, you've tried being gentle, you've tried everything in between. But here's what you're missing. It's not a behavior problem. It's not defiance. It's not that they're bad listeners. Most people don't realize kids only listen when they feel heard first. It sounds counterintuitive, but yelling makes kids tune out while calm validation makes them lean in. This isn't about discipline, but about connection. The parents and educators who get this will end the power struggles forever. Watch what happens with this one phrase. You're standing in the kitchen. Your kid is supposed to be getting ready for school. You've asked them 3 times already to put their shoes on. 3 times. And they're still sitting there, playing with their toys like you didn't say a word. You feel your blood pressure rising. Your jaw clenches. You think to yourself, why don't they just listen the first time? What's wrong with them? And here's where most of us go wrong. We assume it's a character flaw. We think they're being deliberately difficult. We label it as defiance or disrespect or laziness. But that's not what's happening at all. Here's the thing nobody tells you about kids and listening. Their brains aren't wired like ours. When we tell them to do something, especially when we're frustrated, their nervous system goes into defense mode. They're not thinking about shoes or school or responsibility. They're feeling the tension in your voice. They're sensing your frustration. And their brain interprets that as a threat. Not a physical threat, but an emotional one. So instead of processing your words and following through, they freeze up. Or they push back. Or they completely shut down. It's not a choice they're making. It's a biological response. Think about the last time someone told you what to do when you were already stressed. Maybe your partner said something about the dishes when you just walked in from a terrible day at work. Or your boss criticized your project right when you were feeling overwhelmed. Did you immediately think, oh great, constructive feedback, let me jump right on that? No, you probably felt defensive. You probably felt misunderstood. You probably wanted to explain yourself or push back or just tune them out completely. That's exactly what happens in your kid's brain, except they don't have the years of emotional regulation practice that you have. They don't have the vocabulary to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now and I need a minute. They just react. So what's the one phrase that changes everything? It's this. I notice you're having a hard time with this. That's it. 5 seconds. But those 5 seconds do something magical in your child's brain. They shift everything from confrontation to collaboration. From you versus them to you and them versus the problem. Let me show you how this works in real life. Same scenario. Kid needs to put shoes on. You've asked twice. They're still playing. But instead of asking a 3rd time with more frustration, you try something different. You walk over. You get down to their level. You make eye contact. And you say, I notice you're having a hard time stopping your game to get ready. Watch what happens next. Your kid looks up. They don't see anger in your eyes. They see understanding. Their defensive walls start to come down, and here's the key. You're not saying it's okay to ignore you. You're not letting them off the hook. You're simply acknowledging their internal experience. You're validating that, yes, transitions are hard. Yes, stopping something fun to do something boring is genuinely difficult. And that validation is what opens the door to cooperation. Because here's what most parenting advice gets wrong. We're told to be firm. We're told to set boundaries. We're told consistency is everything, and those things matter. But they only work when the relationship is intact. When your kid feels connected to you, boundaries work. When they feel disconnected, boundaries feel like attacks. Think about it. If your best friend sets a boundary with you, you might not love it, but you respect it because you trust the relationship. If a stranger tries to control you, you resist. Kids are the same way. Every interaction either builds connection or erodes it. And connection is the foundation that makes everything else work. So when you say, I notice you're having a hard time with this, you're making a deposit in the connection bank. You're saying, I see you. I understand you. I'm not the enemy here. And once that connection is established, your kid's brain can actually process what needs to happen next. Their nervous system calms down, the defensive walls lower, and suddenly they're able to hear you, not because you got louder or more threatening, but because you got calmer and more understanding. Now I know what you're thinking. This sounds great in theory, but my kid is different. My kid really is defiant. My kid really does ignore me on purpose, and I hear you. Some kids are more strong-willed than others. Some kids have bigger emotions. Some kids struggle more with transitions or attention or impulse control. But here's the truth that changed everything for me. Behavior is communication, always. When your kid isn't listening, they're telling you something. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're feeling disconnected from you. Maybe they don't understand what you're asking. Maybe they're in the middle of something that matters to them and they need help transitioning. But it's always communication, not manipulation. And when we respond to the communication instead of just the behavior, everything shifts. Let me give you another example. Bedtime, the eternal struggle. You say it's time for bed. Your kid says 5 more minutes. You say no, it's already past bedtime. They whine, they negotiate. They suddenly need water, need the bathroom, need to tell you something super important. You get frustrated. They get upset. Everyone ends the day feeling defeated. Sound familiar? Here's how the phrase changes this. You walk in and say, I notice you're having a hard time ending your day. I get it. It's hard to stop doing fun things and go to sleep, but our bodies need rest. What's one thing that would make bedtime easier for you tonight? See what happened there. You validated their experience. You acknowledge that yes, bedtime is genuinely hard. You're not pretending it's easy or fun or something they should want to do. You're being honest. And then you invited collaboration. You made them part of the solution instead of the problem. And when kids feel like they have some control, some agency, some say in what's happening, they cooperate so much more easily. Because the resistance isn't usually about the actual task. It's about feeling powerless. It's about feeling controlled. It's about feeling like their feelings don't matter. Think about your own life again. When do you resist doing something? Usually when you feel forced. When someone is trying to control you. When your autonomy feels threatened. But when someone acknowledges your feelings and invites you to be part of the solution, resistance melts away. We're not that different from our kids. We just forget what it felt like to be small and powerless and constantly told what to do. Now let's talk about why this phrase works on a neurological level. When you validate your child's experience, you're actually helping regulate their nervous system. You're activating their social engagement system instead of their threat response. Dr. Stephen Porges talks about this in his polyvagal theory. When we feel safe and connected, our ventral vagal system is active. We're calm, we're open, we're able to think clearly and cooperate. But when we feel threatened or disconnected, we shift into sympathetic arousal. That's fight or flight, or dorsal vagal shutdown. That's freeze or collapse. And here's the key. Your tone of voice, your facial expression, your body language, all of this communicates to your child's nervous system whether they're safe or threatened. When you say, I notice you're having a hard time with this in a calm, warm tone, you're sending safety signals. You're telling their nervous system, you're not in danger, I'm here with you, we're okay. And when their nervous system feels safe, their prefrontal cortex comes back online. That's the part of the brain responsible for decision-making, impulse control, and following directions. But when they feel threatened by your frustration or anger, their prefrontal cortex goes offline. The amygdala takes over. And the amygdala doesn't care about shoes or bedtime or homework. It only cares about survival. So they literally cannot listen in that state. It's not a choice. It's neurobiology. This is why yelling doesn't work long-term. Sure, you might get compliance in the moment because you've activated their fear response. But you've also damaged the connection. You've taught them that big emotions are scary and should be avoided. You've modeled that when we're frustrated, we get loud and aggressive. And you've made it less likely that they'll come to you when they're struggling in the future. Because if you respond to small struggles with frustration, how will you respond to big ones? On the other hand, when you consistently validate their experience and help them through difficult moments, you're building emotional intelligence. You're teaching them that feelings are okay, that struggles are normal, that they can handle hard things, and that you're a safe person to turn to when life gets overwhelming. These lessons matter so much more than whether they put their shoes on the first time you ask. But I know what you're thinking now. This sounds like permissive parenting. This sounds like I'm supposed to just accept whatever behavior and validate their feelings and never set boundaries. And that's not what I'm saying at all. Validation doesn't mean permissiveness. You can validate feelings while still maintaining expectations. In fact, that's exactly what you should do. The phrase is, I notice you're having a hard time with this. Not, I notice you're having a hard time with this so you don't have to do it. The expectation remains. The boundary stays firm, but the approach changes. Here's what it sounds like in practice. I notice you're having a hard time turning off the TV. I get it. This show is really interesting, and TV time is over now. Would you like to turn it off yourself, or should I help you? See? You validated the feeling, you acknowledged the struggle, and you maintained the boundary. You didn't back down, you didn't let them keep watching, but you also didn't shame them for having feelings about it. You stayed connected while staying firm. That's the sweet spot. Or try this one. I notice you're having a hard time being gentle with your sister. It looks like you're feeling really frustrated. It's not okay to hit. Let's take a break and figure out what you need. Again, validation plus boundary. You're not saying hitting is okay. You're not excusing the behavior. But you're also not shaming them for the feeling underneath the behavior. You're addressing both the feeling and the action. And that's what helps kids actually learn and grow instead of just comply out of fear. The beautiful thing about this approach is that it works for all ages. Toddlers, preschoolers, elementary kids, even teenagers. The phrase adapts. For a toddler, you might say, I notice you're having a hard time sharing your toys. Sharing is hard when you're little. For a teenager, you might say, I notice you're having a hard time talking to me about this. I get that it feels awkward. I'm here when you're ready. Same principle, different application. Because at every age, kids need to feel seen and heard before they can cooperate. And here's something else nobody talks about. This phrase doesn't just change your kid's behavior, it changes yours. When you pause to notice what your child is struggling with, you shift out of reactive mode. You stop taking their behavior personally. You remember that they're not trying to make your life difficult. They're just being a kid who's having a hard time with something. And that perspective shift changes everything. You feel less angry, less frustrated, less defeated. You remember that you're the adult. You're the one with the developed prefrontal cortex. You're the one who can regulate yourself and help them regulate too. Because here's the hard truth. We can't expect our kids to be calm if we're not calm. We can't expect them to regulate their emotions if we're not regulating ours. We can't expect them to listen if we're not truly seeing them. Kids learn emotional regulation through co-regulation. They learn to calm down by being around adults who are calm. They learn to handle big feelings by watching us handle ours. And when we're yelling or threatening or punishing out of our own frustration, we're teaching them that emotions are scary and should be controlled through force. That's not the lesson we want to teach. So the phrase, I notice you're having a hard time with this, is as much for you as it is for them. It's a pause button. It's a reminder to get curious instead of furious. It's a chance to remember that you and your kid are on the same team, and that changes the entire dynamic of your relationship. Let me tell you about Sarah. She came to me completely defeated. Her 6-year-old son wouldn't listen to anything. Every morning was a battle. Every bedtime was a war. Every transition was a meltdown. She'd tried everything. Sticker charts, consequences, rewards, timeouts. Nothing worked. She was starting to think something was seriously wrong with her kid, or with her parenting. She felt like a failure, and her son was starting to believe he was a bad kid. It was breaking her heart. I taught her this one phrase, I notice you're having a hard time with this. She was skeptical. She thought it was too simple, too soft. But she was desperate, so she tried it. The next morning, when her son was refusing to get dressed instead of escalating, she paused. She took a breath. She got down to his level, and she said, I notice you're having a hard time getting dressed this morning. Her son looked at her, surprised. His defenses started to lower. She continued, I wonder if these pants are scratchy or if you're just not ready to stop playing yet. He said the pants were scratchy. She said, okay, let's find different pants together. He got dressed without another complaint. She couldn't believe it. It seemed too easy, but she kept trying it, at bedtime, during homework. When he was fighting with his sister, every time the phrase opened up a door that had been slammed shut. Within 2 weeks, their entire relationship had shifted. He was listening more. She was yelling less. They were connecting instead of constantly clashing, and her son stopped thinking he was a bad kid. He started to understand that he was a good kid who sometimes had hard moments. And that's a completely different story to grow up with. That's the power of this approach. It doesn't just change behavior in the moment. It changes the story your child tells about themselves. And that story matters more than any single act of compliance. Because kids who grow up thinking they're bad become teenagers who believe they're broken. But kids who grow up knowing that struggles are normal and feelings are valid become teenagers who can handle life's challenges with resilience and self-compassion. Now let's talk about the most common mistakes people make when trying this phrase. First, saying it with frustration. The words don't work if your tone is angry. Your kid will hear the anger, not the words. You have to actually calm yourself down first. Take a breath. Remind yourself that your kid is struggling, not manipulating. Get your own nervous system regulated. Then say the phrase. Second mistake, not actually being curious. If you say, I notice you're having a hard time, but you don't really care what they're struggling with, they'll sense that. You have to genuinely want to understand. You have to be open to what they might say. You have to be willing to problem solve together. Third mistake, using it as manipulation. Some parents learn this phrase and use it as a trick to get compliance faster, but kids are smart. They can tell when you're being genuine and when you're just trying to manipulate them into cooperating. This has to come from a real place of empathy and connection. It's not a technique, it's a mindset shift. Fourth mistake, giving up too soon. If you've been yelling and threatening and punishing for years, your kid isn't going to trust this new approach immediately. They're going to test it. They're going to wait for you to snap back into old patterns. You have to be consistent. You have to prove that this is the new normal. Give it time. Keep showing up with empathy and validation. Eventually, they'll believe you. And fifth mistake, only using it when you want something from them. If the only time you validate your kids' feelings is when you need them to cooperate, they'll see through it. You have to validate their feelings all the time. When they're excited, when they're sad, when they're frustrated, when they're happy. Make emotional validation a constant part of your relationship, not just a tool you pull out when you need compliance. That's how you build real connection. That's how you create a relationship where listening happens naturally because the foundation of trust and respect is solid. Here's another example of how this works in different situations. Your kid is melting down at the grocery store. They want a toy. You said no. They're screaming. Everyone is staring. You feel embarrassed and angry. Old approach, you threaten consequences or give in to stop the tantrum. New approach, you get down to their level. You say, I notice you're having a hard time accepting no right now. You really wanted that toy. I get it. It's disappointing. And we're not buying toys today. Let's take some deep breaths together. You're validating the feeling while maintaining the boundary. You're staying connected while staying firm. And you're teaching them that disappointment is a normal feeling that they can handle with your support. Or your teenager rolls their eyes when you ask about homework. Old approach, you lecture them about respect or take away privileges. New approach, you say, I notice you're having a hard time talking about school with me. I wonder if you're feeling stressed or if I'm asking at a bad time. What would help? You're opening a door instead of slamming it shut. You're inviting conversation instead of demanding compliance. And you're showing them that you're interested in understanding, not just controlling. The phrase works because it does three things simultaneously. It validates their internal experience. It maintains your connection. And it opens the door to problem solving. Those three things together create the conditions for cooperation. Not forced compliance that breeds resentment, but genuine cooperation that comes from feeling understood and respected. And here's what happens over time when you parent this way. Your kids develop emotional intelligence. They learn to name their feelings. They learn that feelings are information, not emergencies. They learn to ask for help when they're struggling instead of acting out. They develop self-compassion instead of shame. They learn to see challenges as problems to solve instead of character flaws. And they maintain a strong connection with you through all the developmental stages because you've proven that you're safe, that you're on their team, that you can handle their big feelings without falling apart or getting angry. This matters so much as they get older, because the teenager who feels comfortable telling you they're struggling is the teenager who will come to you about the big stuff, the hard stuff, the scary stuff. But if you spent their childhood responding to struggles with frustration or punishment, why would they come to you when things get really hard? They won't. They'll hide. They'll lie. They'll push you away. Not because they're bad kids, but because you've accidentally taught them that struggles equal your disappointment or anger. On the other hand, if you've spent their childhood validating their feelings and helping them through challenges with patience and empathy, you've built a relationship that can weather anything. You've created a foundation of trust that will carry you through the teenage years and beyond. And that's worth so much more than getting them to put their shoes on the first time you ask. So here's your challenge. For the next week, try this phrase. Every time you're about to repeat yourself or raise your voice or threaten a consequence, pause, take a breath, and say, I notice you're having a hard time with this. See what happens. Notice how your child responds. Notice how you feel. Notice how the dynamic shifts. And pay attention to the moments when it's hardest to say. Those are the moments when you need it most. Those are the moments when your own nervous system is dysregulated and you need to calm yourself down before you can help your child. This isn't about being perfect. You're going to forget. You're going to snap. You're going to fall back into old patterns. That's okay. That's normal. That's being human. When it happens, repair. Go back to your kid and say, I'm sorry I yelled earlier. I was feeling frustrated and I didn't handle it well. You deserved better. That's how we teach kids that mistakes are okay and relationships can be repaired. That's how we model accountability and emotional maturity. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is connection. The goal is raising kids who feel seen and heard and valued. Kids who know their feelings matter. Kids who can handle life's challenges because they've had practice with a patient, empathetic adult by their side. That's what this one phrase can do. It can transform your relationship with your child from adversarial to collaborative, from exhausting to connecting, from constant battles to genuine partnership. Because at the end of the day, kids don't need perfect parents. They need present parents. They need parents who are willing to see them, really see them in their struggles and their triumphs. They need parents who remember that behavior is communication and respond with curiosity instead of judgment. They need parents who stay calm when they can't, who stay connected when they're pushing away, who stay patient when they're being difficult. That's what builds humans who can navigate this complex world with resilience and compassion and emotional intelligence. So the next time your kid isn't listening, remember this. They're not being bad, they're having a hard time. And that one shift in perspective, that one phrase, I notice you're having a hard time with this, can change everything. For them, for you. For your entire relationship, try it, watch what happens. And remember, you've got this. Parenting is hard, but you're not alone, and now you have a tool that actually works.